Since the revelation of the WID's SMG builds, SMGs have received a mixed reaction from the Division 2 community. More so, the game has received some really drastic changes as a result of such a powerful build. Nevertheless, I credit WIDs for doing a good job and sniffing out an overpowered combination, because as a YouTuber, that is his job, to find the things that are actually very viable within the game and showcase them. But since the changes to Clutch, Safeguard, and the tactical link for the Demolitionist have been implemented, I decided to give an SMG build a try just to see how viable it is in PvE. Now, based on my build, I was easily able to stack 60% critical hit chance on my SMGs because the SMGs come with about 14.5% crit chance, and that's all native to every SMG in the game. And also, I was able to garner about 60% critical hit damage, which is something that you probably need in order to leverage your critical hit chance when you get it up to 60%. Now, in order to do so, it's not necessarily that difficult. All you have to do is get 2 Circle of Concern, 1 Wyvern, and 2 Douglas and Harden, and make sure you have sufficient critical hit chance in all these items in order to be able to gather the 60% critical hit chance and the 60% critical hit damage that you need. Now, to my surprise, the SMG build, which was in no way min-max, was actually pretty good, and it served its purpose. I found out that I was able to crit easily and gain my health back while I was doing lots and lots of damage. And like I said, this was a test build, but all in all, what I want to do with the rest of this video is share my observations and some of the things that I learned, both positive and negative, that go with SMG builds in the current game. Alright, the first thing that I discovered when running this SMG build was I had to have a significant amount of SMG damage. I realized that I was building and starting to add more SMG damage to my build in areas where I could find the room to do so. There were benefits. So in addition to your critical hit chance and critical hit damage, you have to be on the lookout for SMG damage rolls on your gloves and something like devastating talent on your holster to leverage the higher damage numbers. Also, you have to be able to use and must leverage the 10% SMG bonus from the Circle of Concern pieces, including the 15% SMG damage bonus from the Demolitionist, to gain the available bonuses that these grant you. It's free and easy bonus, plus the Circle of Concern items roll with a lot of attributes, so you also gain that benefit from having all of them. Another thing that I learned is when modding your SMG, you might be tempted to use your damage to elite mods, but I realized that critical hit damage mods were actually better to deal damage uniformly to all enemy types. And third, your health pool needs to be large. Now, with a talent like Clutch, you're only allowed to run 4 defensive attributes on all your gear. So each defensive attribute or mod that you're using has to count. Hence, high health rolls will be very necessary, because using your mods to gain that health is also adding a 2% health pool to you whenever you crit. Now, I understand that Clutch doesn't do well with the armor regeneration because that's been changed to 1%, but it's also valuable to test out and see if having a high armor roll will be beneficial to you, because every time you crit, you get 2% of your health and 1% of your armor each time. So maybe if you have a high armor roll and a decent amount of health, that might also be beneficial, but it's very difficult to get such a high armor roll and health with all the gear that we have and with the limitation for fall defensive mods to run Clutch. And I would also suggest that for your chest piece, you can also run Vital, and also run Vital on a backpack if you want to gain more health. But if you want more DPS, then Berserk is your go-to talent for a build like this. Now, even with all of this, you have a very decent build and everything is fine and dandy until you find yourself in some PvE scenarios where you have to use a ranged approach to take out hordes of enemies. In that situation, an SMG build might not serve you well unless you're able to maybe equip an SMG with a decent optimal range or use optimal range mods and talents. And as much as the optimal range talent sounds as something that's not necessarily valuable, it might be very useful for you in this situation. But all in all, what you can actually do is you can equip a secondary weapon that would help you with your ranged gameplay. Something like an LMG that has a lot of bullets in it, maybe a slower reload speed, or something like your ARs. These can help you do well when it comes to range combat. And then when you have NPCs that are closer to you, you can bring out your SMG and continue to do the damage that you need to do with it. Also, enemy AI behavior in the Division 2 is really spastic. And so an AI can zip-zap across the screen as if all Black Tusk members train with Usain Bolt. And this makes it quite a very weird scenario when you're trying to land those center mass shots. But if you develop your accuracy, and whether you're on console or PC, this is definitely something that I feel is achievable for everybody. Now, another aspect to consider is high damage SMGs within the game. For many of you who don't know, there are SMGs that roll with varying damage. In fact, some SMGs can roll up to over 20,000 base damage. And even though they have a lower rate of fire, this is something that you might be able to mitigate by using a talent like Allegro and maybe even the Chatterbox talent to gain the increased rate of fire, and pair it with that high damage. You might find yourself in a situation where you're dealing sufficient amount of damage to the NPCs and dealing it just fast enough for your playstyle. Now, finally, before I wrap up this video, I also wanted to say that SMGs are, even though viable, still have their limitations, but all in all, there's something that we always consider in the Division community, and that is your playstyle. If you play an SMG and it doesn't fit your playstyle, that doesn't mean SMGs are bad. It just means that that may not be your playstyle. And if maybe you try an SMG and you fall in love with it, then it probably suits you more as a gamer. And so that's something that everyone has to, consider. And more importantly, if you already have something like maybe an LMG build, it will probably be a more difficult adjustment to make, because an LMG or even an AR build grants you the convenience of doing damage from a distance and the ability to stay alive longer, since you're farther away from the NPCs and you're dealing damage to them, and you can use cover and use distance to reduce the damage that's being dealt to you. And so when you're in a group with an SMG, there's a lot of damage involved, and so you have to ensure that your build is superb and can keep you alive and can regenerate your health and has a lot of sustainability as you run it. So that's all I have for SMG viability in the current patch of the Division 2, and these are some of the advantages that I've seen and some of the limitations that I have also noticed from running a very basic SMG build. Now, I will go on and continue to refine my build because I've been enjoying it lately and it's given me something of a different playstyle, and I think I'm probably going to get myself a min-max version if I can get the pieces. But so far, I just wanted to hear your opinions if you're an SMG user, so please share in the comment section your build and your gameplay philosophy behind using an SMG. And if you're not an SMG user, also state your reasons in the comment section why you think there are limitations to SMG builds in the current game's patch. Anyways, that's it from me. Thank you very much for your time and your audience, and thank you for clicking on this video. I appreciate you guys so much. We are approaching almost 15,000 subscribers. I really just wanted to say thank you to all those who have subscribed and all those who have been on the channel since the very first day in about October of 2016, when I made the cringy video on how to get better on the Division 1. Thank you once again very much for your time and audience, and I guess I'll see you in the next video. Peace.